Good afternoon. Welcome to the Impact of Women-Owned Businesses. On behalf of our president, Ron Busby, our board, and our staff, I want to thank you all for attending. I'm Donna Jackson, Program Director of the Greenwood Women's Business Center. We are an affiliate of the U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated, affectionately known as the National Voice of Black Businesses. Today, we will explore the 2025 Impact of Women-Owned Businesses Report commissioned by Wells Fargo. We will explore women's entrepreneurship and the barriers they face, particularly for women of color. It outlines tangible actions undertaken by the government, businesses, philanthropists, and support organizations to break down these barriers and proposes additional strategies for continued progress. Before I introduce today's speakers, I encourage you to drop any questions that you may have into the chat, and we will address as many as possible at the end of today's webinar. We will have a short Q&A at the end, and we thank you in advance for your questions. Please place your questions in the chat, and our team will share 2 to 3 of them with the speakers at the end of the conversation. It is GBC's honor to introduce you to our facilitator of today's discussion, Elisa Joseph. Ms. Joseph has a proven record of accomplishment in leadership, strategic planning, grant writing, marketing communications, and program design strategies and implementation. With over 25 years of experience in the financial services industry, she brings a wealth of knowledge and financial products, including those providing access to capital, supply chain management, diversity initiatives, multicultural marketing, and management. She serves as the Director of Programs for the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc., in leading with counsel, guidance, and management expertise in designing and implementing programs for Black and minority businesses to help them scale and grow. Her work has enabled USBC to serve thousands of Black businesses with digital virtual programs and support Black chambers in the past 2 years. Ms. Joseph launched specialized programs like the USBC credit card, emerging loan grant programs, and financial education programs. Ms. Joseph is a graduate of Fordham University and received her master's degree in organizational psychology in Columbia University. She is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and has served on nonprofit boards. Our speaker today is Ms. Angela Dingle, the president and CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy, WIP. Angela Dingle leads a national nonpartisan organization advocating on behalf of women entrepreneurs, strengthening their impact on our nation's public policy, creating economic opportunities, and forging alliances with other business organizations. Serving as the voice for over 14 million women-owned companies in the U.S., WIP works with lawmakers to impact and influence policy that provides economic equity, procurement inclusion, and access to the global marketplace. Prior to serving in this role, Angela founded Ex Nihilo Management, an award-winning technology and management consultancy that provides governance, risk management, and cybersecurity to the public, private, and nonprofit sector. She is the author of Discovering Your Girl Power, 10 Strategies to Build Confidence, Charisma, and Credibility, and Unexpected Leader, 11 Tools for Transformational Leadership. Angela holds a MS in Management Information Systems from Bowie State University, a BS in Computer Science from DeVry University, a certified Myers-Briggs Type Indicator practitioner, and a certified management consultant. Angela is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. and the Epsilon Phi Chi Honor Society. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Donna.
Hi, ladies.
Good to see everybody here. And we welcome everyone to this really interesting webinar that we're doing today on the impact of women-owned businesses. And thank you so much, Ms. Dingle, and hopefully I can call you Angela, for joining us today to share your thoughts and your insights on the joint study between Women Impacting Public Policy Education Institute and Wells Fargo. The 2025 report on the impact of women-owned businesses really shapes the current state of women-owned firms in the US. Since the pandemic, there has been unprecedented growth in the number of women-owned businesses nationally. And the study researches not only the trends surrounding growth, but the challenges and opportunities that represent the changing landscape of women entrepreneurship. As we get started, Angela, I'd love for you and for us to really have a great dialogue on this, where we're discussing the need for this research now and the importance of closing the gap to realize full economic growth that impacts entrepreneurs and the communities they serve. So welcome to this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. This research could not be more timely. You know, the data really shows some interesting information about women business owners, and I'm happy to be here with you to discuss it.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate you being here. And so we're going to start with our first question. In reading through the report, despite the surge in women-owned businesses post-pandemic, why does scaling remain such a challenge? And what strategies could help close the gap in employment and revenue contributions?
Yeah, I think one of the things to keep in mind when you look at this report is we're not just dealing with like a talent gap. We're really talking about a mismatch in the ecosystem. You know, women have been for some time starting businesses at nearly double the rate of men, but the structures around capital and contracting and networks, they simply just haven't kept pace. And so it makes scaling a lot more difficult. And if we can close this gap, it's really a strategy from an economic standpoint. It just highlights the importance that the number of women business owners continue to grow, but the size of those businesses remain disproportionately small. So there are a couple of things.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that hold women back from scaling. And we had an opportunity to speak with Talisha from the US Black Chambers when we did this first report a couple of years ago about this issue that has to do with access to capital, right? Women-owned firms just have lower revenues, which means that they have lower credit worthiness, which means they get less access to the funding that they need to grow. When you look at the demographics or the types of businesses that women are starting, you notice, or you might notice, that there are more non-employer firms, meaning that it might be a solopreneur or a one-person firm, or what might be considered to be a micro business. And so that's going to limit the ability for that woman-owned business to scale. And then third, the types of industries that they're working in might have thinner margins than you might see in other industries. So scaling really is, it's about access. And we've seen these patterns repeatedly. Women show up, they innovate, and they lead, but then there's some structural barriers that really keep them from being able to grow.
Yeah, I was really taken by the stat that it would take a prolonged 120 years for women-owned firms to generate the same amount of revenue. And we definitely need to close that gap right now. So as we move to the next slide, I think this question leads into sort of this gap that we're talking about, where we see that there are persistent barriers that face women entrepreneurs today, and especially women of color. How do you believe that cross-sector collaboration can reduce these challenges?
Yeah, so the barriers are, there are a number of different types of barriers, and then we can talk about cross-sector collaboration, right? So it's these lower than average revenues that we talked about, and fewer employer firms, access to capital, the different industries that they're in. That naturally means that those women business owners have a smaller professional network. And I can remember years ago when I started my business, I think we might have even talked about that as we were prepping for this call. When I started my business, there were things that I was experiencing that I thought were only me. I thought they only had to do with
Mhm.
Angela and the way that I was running business. They're actually systemic issues. And so you need to get connected into the networks that can reduce or eliminate or mitigate the fact that those barriers exist or open doors to other ways that you can overcome those types of persistent barriers. So the types of professional networks are really important because they might open up contracting opportunities. They might open up partnering opportunities. They might even open up investment opportunities, as well as when we look at regulatory and compliance burdens and or regulatory barriers. Clearly, belonging to organizations like the U.S. Black Chambers or WIP, Women Impacting Public Policy, can really get you in the room with decision makers that can, again, eliminate or reduce or give you a voice for those things. So, collaboration with the government by itself is not going to solve it. It really has to be a combination of all of us, not just nonprofits, not just corporate supplier diversity programs, not just government. We have to align a combination of policy, so public policy, capital, access and distribution, education on the part of the women business owners, and then the partnerships and networks that will help them to start to chip away at those systemic inequities. And that's how we move from really saying, we've got all these great entrepreneurs, but how do we enable them to now start to see some economic advancement and economic power?
No, that is so true. And the Greenville Women's Business Center, which is one of a network of a number of women's business centers across the country, this is why they exist, right? The ability for us to not only form more ecosystems, but to bring the kind of information and education that you're talking about. And when we look at this stat that, one of the things we want women to do is to grow. And the stat that when we talk about solopreneurs in particular, that women-owned businesses only account for 9.6% of employment and 6.2% of revenues across all businesses. What are some of the ways that women-owned firms in particular can address that growth, whether it's through capital contracts, operational changes, industry focus that allows them to expand, reduce, or address barriers to growth?
Yeah, there's a woman, Alison Maslin, who essentially says she wrote a book called Scale, right? And it's essentially either scale it or fail it. The One of the things that women have to think about doing is they've really got to think about kind of four things, right? They need the capital to be able to grow. So that means they need stronger financial systems, the ability to forecast what their sales might be, their ability to document what they've done successfully and be able to
Mhm.
communicate that in a way that lenders, whether they're traditional lenders or not, understand that so that they can get access to bigger capital opportunities. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell women business owners that they really need to be thinking about how to use AI to do that. AI is a game changer. It's not just going to help you write your emails. It's not just going to help you do your marketing messages. It really can help you in this particular area determine where you need to scale, what your financials are telling you, and what you need to do moving forward. The other thing to think about is operational infrastructure. If I am a solo practitioner or a solo business owner in an industry that is direct to consumer, as we see things change right now, like with the government shutdown that's happening at the time of this recording. If those folks aren't working, you might not be making any money. So it's really about building an operational infrastructure that both within their companies and outside of their companies. Right during the pandemic, we saw a couple of things. We saw. Uh, we saw governments, we saw nonprofits, we saw private sector entities all come together and go, we've got to prop up the US economy, or we've got to prop up the global economy. So they put all of these support systems in place for those business owners. And the data shows that those things were effective. So we still kind of need those things available to them in order for women business owners to be to be not just successful, but to help them to survive because they, you see some trends where people start the businesses, but they're closing them just as fast. So having these external resources available to them, I already talked about technology, but even thinking about new business models. I was talking to about 6 business owners yesterday about just this current climate of uncertainty and how they've had to just pivot and rethink the way that they do business. And again, technology can help you do that. One other thing to think about is uh, trying to think about industries that have higher growth potential and positioning for both government and corporate contracting opportunities. And I would venture so much as to add global contracting opportunities at this point. And then finally, I talked already about networks and partnerships. And this is where women still experience a gap. So the thing that I learned all those years ago when I started my business was it wasn't just me, right? Other women were experiencing the same thing, but we network differently. Women tend to have very broad networks, men tend to have very deep networks. And so women need to start looking at those broader networks and figuring out how to deepen them. I always tease and say my ex and I went to my grandniece's birthday party. She was turning 1. I walked out
Mhm.
with a recommendation on where to get a pair of shoes, and he walked out with a new broker. Like, how does that even happen, right? So that's what we need to be thinking about. How do we deepen those network connections? Because once you have those deep network connections, people start talking about you when you're not in the room, right? And that's
That
what you
is
want.
true.
You want someone to be introducing you to those opportunities when you're not there.
Yeah, that is so true. I'm going to hit the next couple of slides just for us to have a conversation before I go to the next page. So if we look at this, one of the things that we are seeing is that fewer women of color are at the top of these specific employer type firms, right? So we just really kind of talked about the deepening of networks as opposed to the broadening of networks and really trying to have those advocates in the room, as you say, that makes such a difference in our ability to be able to grow, to expand, to explore vertical integration within the industries that we're in and the like. So would you like to comment on this particular slide and based on what was in the report?
Yeah. So again, when you look at the industries that specific demographics play in, right? So women of color, Black and brown women of color, tend to start and grow businesses in industries that have either slower or lower growth potential than others. And if they are in those industries and they have non-employer businesses, meaning that it's just the owner that's doing the work, or they've decided to be a solo entrepreneur, as well as this whole new gig economy of people that are starting businesses because they have to in order to be able to take care of their families. I think that's why you see this trend of fewer women and fewer women of color at the top of these companies. You will, given the current climate, we'll probably continue to see more of that. Right now, politically in this country, there's just a pushback against that type of focus. Corporations of all sizes tended to decide we need to have diversity in the workplace, diversity in our supply chains. We all know that that is good for business. Well, I don't know if everybody does, but it's good for business, right? The research will tell you that by having a diverse workforce and a diverse leadership team with women in particular, when you get women into the leadership and into the workforce within companies, you increase trust, you increase productivity, you increase transparency. It just is a game changer for businesses.
Absolutely. And as we move to the next slide, love again your insights on this particular stat. We talked a little bit about diversification among really being able to maybe move from a solopreneur to an entrepreneur with more employees, but industry is important too. And I'm really interested in your insight on what has moved from 2019 to 2024 as we talk about the diversification in industry amongst women-owned businesses.
Yeah, I think the primary thing that you see, and this has led to more growth opportunities, is that you'll see that women business owners moved from uh, reduced the amount of new starts or business continuity in areas around healthcare and social services and social assistance, and they started moving into other industries. They also moved into technical and professional services, and that became a game changer for them because there are other revenue avenues. Again, when we think about when you look at the data, so some of the data is segmented based on demographics, right? So when you look at
Mhm.
Asian American-owned women, the data says that they're in restaurants and service industries like nail salons and things of that sort, which were heavily impacted by the pandemic. The
Mhm.
same thing with women of color. They might be hair salons, they might be a small clothing service. And when you start moving into professional services, when you start moving into manufacturing or whatever those other industries might be, you start to see more growth opportunities.
So as we move to the next slide, one of the things that I do want to do is juxtapose um, the idea around employment and revenue, um, and how it relates to mitigating the gap that we started this conversation out with originally. So as we work to mitigate those gaps across firms, employment and revenue, can you highlight the importance of relationship building to navigate complex processes across certification, contracting, equity investment, which again is another area that we don't always explore, for small, and I want us to have an emphasis a little bit too on middle market firms because they're really in that next trajectory of growth, so that we can identify new pathways for them that helps them achieve their goals.
Yeah, so one of the things that you talked about, and I'll jump on that one right away, is really about certification.
Hmm.
Certifications, the nonprofits in the U.S. in particular that certify business owners, whether it's a woman-owned certification, our U.S. Black Chamber certification, our partners at the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber, those certifications open networking and contracting opportunities that you can't get outside of those areas. So it's so important for business owners, women business owners, to do a couple of things. Think about not just relationships in terms of, many people join chambers, and chambers vary across the country. There's some that are really
Hmm.
good, and there's some that are, warm and fuzzy, right? Think not just about them, but really think about where do you want to take the business. And a certification can be a game changer because you get into you get associated with U.S. Black Chambers, for instance, and they have a national conference. And at that national conference, there are all the big corporations that are there, and their government partners are there, and their nonprofit partners are there. So for that business owner, my professional network has now expanded in ways that it would take me years in order to take advantage of those, as well as the education opportunities that come about as a result of it. And if and when you get the opportunity to participate in those educational programs, we're all so busy. The pandemic made us like crazy busy where we were multitasking. But if you can kind of lock down and focus and concentrate on what's being said and literally do what they say, those companies that are sponsoring those things and those certification programs, they're paying attention, and they're picking the cream of the crop from those to open additional opportunities to have conversations with respect to contracting opportunities. When you talk about government contracting and equity investment, the government contracting landscape is changing. The federal government was always considered Fortune 1. It will always, well, I don't know if it will always, but it is currently still one of the largest buyers in the world. But you really have to think about diversifying your client base. And so women business owners need to be thinking about that. So not just federal government, but state and local and county government as well, and equity investment. Uh, the firms the companies that are employer firms are more likely to get the investment dollars because they are perceived as being more sustainable. I don't want to imply that solo firms are
Mhm.
not sustainable, but the report is pretty clear. The landscape for women, it's not even, right? There's a whole bunch of unevenness that sits within these various networks. And so those three that you mentioned are the relationships that matter, because the systems within each of them is so complex. And so women need, advocates and guides and instructions and people that can help them to navigate that. So relationship building in this sense isn't really just a nice to have, it's really a scalable strategy. And so organizations like this are so important. Specifically, as we look at those gaps in employment, it's because although women-owned firms have been growing at a pace that outpaces our male counterparts, our revenues and our employment opportunities have not kept pace. And to your point, when we started this discussion, it's going to take a long time for that to change.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to a point that you made, particularly around certifications, because one of the things I think business owners don't always understand is that, and I'm going to talk about this across our diverse chamber themselves and our other partners, like a lot of us have partnered together among our certification programs to be able to offer free certification, what we call reciprocal certifications among each other. So not only can you come to USBC National Conference, but you can also go to these other conferences because we have created those opportunities within a certification platform. We've done that across women owned business segments, as well as our other diverse segments. And I believe that it really becomes a game changer at the end of the day for people to be able to do a one-stop shop, make it simple, make it easy. We're pretty much aligned with what we're asking for, but being able to kill one bird with one stone, right? Because you're able to, you're able to sort of leverage, here's all my information, and we're making it so much easier for people to be able to become certified across numerous platforms, which is also impactful as we talk about local, particularly local and county opportunities, because we also, in networks that we sit in and relationships that we have put together, have become accepted as certification programs in a number of cities as well. How do you think that really assists the business, particularly when we're talking about local opportunities where they may not have really been thinking about that, because we talk about federal government all the time? How do you think that makes such a difference in being able to change this employment revenue model so that we're able to scale up more, employ more people, but also have more of a steady rate of revenue coming in because of the relationships that we may have made at the local level?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about, so I'm located here in Washington, DC. DC has a local, like a DC-based certification for businesses that are started and they reside in the district. Um, the There are 3 airports in the area. There's National Airport, which is our domestic airport, and then
Mhm.
there are 2 international airports, BWI, Baltimore Washington International, and Dulles International. Collectively, they have what's called an airports authority, and they have contracting opportunities.
Mhm.
Years ago, they decided to accept reciprocity on their certifications, and so I wasn't always the CEO of WIP, right? And so I had held this DC certification for
Mhm.
years. I went to the announcement of this decision for them to accept reciprocity for the certifications. Maybe 2 months later, just happened to see this procurement opportunity that was just right in our sweet spot. I mean, it had my company all over it, and when I went to look at it, it required the certification for the airports authority. And then I remembered that they had this reciprocity. Within 24 hours, DC communicated with them, told them that my certification was accepted, and we bid on that work and we won that work, right? It was a small piece of work, it's about $200,000, but $200,000 on any given day might buy you that piece of equipment, allow you to hire a person, allow you to bid on something else. It's so critical. When I started, and many of you, if you have your like Chambers or your WeBank or any of those certifications that are housed in the B2G Now platform, when you log in, you can see this particular county is accepting your certification, this particular airports authority. It is that network that opens up opportunity for you as a business owner. And it's those little ones. If you can do, I remember a tough time, and I was talking to another colleague, and I had been just kind of beating my head up against the door trying to go after this opportunity. We've been waiting nearly 2 years. It was a multi-million dollar opportunity, and
Mhm.
I had about $1 million of it in my pipeline. And she goes, "Tell me how like your pricing. Let me figure out your price." She goes, "Why don't you just go after 10 small ones instead of that big one? And you can like, hey, I didn't even think about it. It just really opens additional opportunities for business owners. And it's so critical for moving this needle where we see this really large percentage of women-owned businesses, but a very small percentage when you talk about revenue and when you talk about the number of employees that they employ. Because there's
Yeah,
a
that,
significant percentage of that number that are either solo, non-employers or micro businesses.
yeah, that reframing of the thought process, right? We talk about that a lot as well, where, there are opportunities on local levels to be able to um, get you not only in the door quicker, but get you contracting quicker. And they might be smaller amounts, but as you start to gain the experience and you're winning more and more, it really does be able to not only, because time is money for all of us, right? And so it really does help you be able to not only leverage the fact that you've got certification programs that go over multiple layers, but you also can be able to get yourself in the door of being able to win more contracts, gain more experience, to almost the equivalent of what it might be for you going after that one-time federal contract. And I
Mhm.
think in this time right now, I think that really is an important strategy of just reshaping your thinking around that to figure out other ways to be able to drive your revenue moving forward. I'm going to go to the last question right now, and we'll, as we talk through this, one of the things that's really great is that the economic impact of women entrepreneurs has steadily grown. How can these insights guide us in creating more inclusive and supportive business ecosystems? And I want to echo what you talked about a couple of years ago when federal governments, corporations, other nonprofits, we were all really working together during the pandemic, and it really helped move the needle on a lot of companies. Tell us a little bit about, within this research, what that means ultimately in being able to build more inclusive and supportive business ecosystems like we had the opportunity to do just really a couple of years ago.
Well, let me start by saying I think women rock. I think women in general rock, and I think women business owners rock. There have been systemic barriers because of the type of society we live in here in the States. There have been systemic barriers that have been presented to women for many years, and women are resilient. I love when I go to annual conferences because you go to the booths and some of these women have just created, you know, products and services and unique ways of doing things that just continue to blow my mind out. I get so excited. I take pictures. I send stuff to my daughters and tell them I buy more things than I'm supposed to buy because women are just so resilient. And so if we keep that in the back of our minds and think about what the data is telling us, right? This data that we've captured and what we need to continue to capture is so critical. It's the most exciting part about this report. It's women are not only just participating in the economy, they're reshaping it. Come on, we represent 51% of the population in the U.S. And I don't know how those numbers are going to change in the future, but that means that we have a lot of economic power, and that means we have a voice. And so we're seeing this higher growth in firm creation with women, and it has been for some time. We're seeing greater diversity amongst the people who are starting those businesses, and we see women entering new industries, right? So this shift from what we used to be doing to what we need to do. So then how do we build that ecosystem? I think the report kind of talks about four things, right? We need to continue to use data to drive policy decisions. That is what we live and breathe at WIP. We're so excited to always be able to partner with the US Black Chambers and your various different affiliates across the country as we try to modernize the way that access to capital works here in the United States. And I'm really encouraged by the availability of programs like CDFI and alternate lenders who really think outside the box with respect to how they provide capital to business owners. We have the opportunity to continue to drive changes from a policy standpoint with respect to procurement rules, as well as federal policy that reflect what women and women-owned businesses really need. The second thing is that we get the ability to influence where investments are being targeted. You know, we need to be targeting investments where the need is the greatest, right? Where the
Mhm.
biggest gaps. So that's in women of color. That's in ensuring that these businesses, be they a woman or not, who actually start hiring people, that these employer firms have the ability to grow. It's tough. And so the things that we can do to support them in terms of investment are really going to be important, as well as there's some high growth industries that offer some real strong returns on investment. And so we've really got to get women thinking about getting involved in those industries. I mean, I'm on a bandwagon right now about sectors like energy, manufacturing, and artificial
Mhm.
intelligence. Folks are probably tired of hearing me say it, but those are things we need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
The third is trying to reduce the friction or the barriers that women are facing around things like compliance. It's tough maintaining a business. It's tough maintaining your compliance if you're talking about doing business in the public sector.
Mhm.
For certifications, while I'm saying get them, that means every year you've got to go back and submit the paperwork and make sure that you're paying attention to that. But you have to keep in mind the benefit of having done that. And by streamlining the procurement processes, especially the ones that burden small businesses. I was talking to a colleague the other day about the good that comes out of ESG, environmental, social, and governance,
Mhm.
and corporate social responsibility programs. But if you take those big global programs and tell a small business that they have to comply with them, you've just now added a burden. Business owners need to be thinking about how to sell, not how to comply with those kind of burdens. So being able to reduce that structural friction is going to be important. And then finally, the fourth thing is continuing to strengthen this connective tissue within the ecosystem, right? Deeper collaboration amongst organizations like us, government agencies, corporations, financial institutions is going to be really helpful to them. So, as the CEO of WIP, I actually love our partners. On my agenda for next year is to make sure that we are together and having these kind of conversations more often than we were last year, and more than that the year after that. So that part is really important. And I think that that is not just when we talk about that ecosystem, it's not just about adding more women-owned businesses, but it's about making sure that as the women-owned businesses that exist now and want to start, that they have this. That we create some conditions is probably a good thing. Conditions for them to be able to scale and hire and innovate and lead and come up with all the great things that it is that women businesses do.
No, I would definitely agree with that. I think what's really interesting is, there's times where I would say all business owners sort of get caught in the idea of, well, this is the organization I really kind of support. And I think what we're saying is we all collaborate together. We all provide tons of information and education, and we really want business owners to go out and seek that. We spend time just doing counseling for an hour or so every week as part of our work. Also, we mentioned the Women's Business Center, really having dedicated resources specifically for women. The state's small business credit initiatives that are out there, as well as community development financial institutions. We partner with Lendistry to be able to provide access to capital to firms. And what's really going to be very interesting to me is as we look at the state of what has happened throughout the course of this year, we're going to see more and more women starting their own businesses. I'm really excited to see what the 2026 report is going to look like because we've got really highly educated women now coming into the workforce who have been experts in their fields for years and really, I think, not need an avenue and need us to be able to navigate what they're going to do next. Love your thoughts on that, as well as your overall thoughts on the importance of this report as we close and begin to take questions for this session.
It's so interesting that you brought that up. That period of time that I told you about when I first started my company and thought it was just me. I participated in a research study that was really focused on what was happening with women of color. And
Mhm.
at the conclusion, they said, now that you know these things, what are you going to do about it? And I really started looking at starting a women's CEO network, and did start one and ran it for a couple of years. And one of the things that we found is that women start businesses for one of two reasons. Either it's the pull of wanting to have workplace balance with your family and your
Mhm.
home responsibilities, or you really feel like you're just pushed out the door from the workplace because workplace conditions are not conducive to either your career growth or who you are as a person. And so we see that happening now. So I think women will continue to start businesses. I had a call with a woman this morning who is currently an employee, and by this time next year she will be running her own company because she's
Mhm.
already thinking about working on that. Women are just being pushed to that. And so I don't think there's anything bad about that. There's plenty of money out here to be made in the world. So then it just goes back to what we talked about, the importance of knowing what barriers need to be removed, what resources need to be provided to create an environment where those women can both start those companies and really thrive. And so we are working on the 2026 report. If you have not registered for it, you should see an invitation to register for Unity Week 2025. That's our conference with all of the 14 organizations that are part of the National Business Inclusion Consortium. So happy to be in that coalition with the US Black Chambers. And so we'll do a sneak peek at that report. So you'll hear a little bit of that data on the first day of the conference, and then the report will come out in early next year.
That is really exciting. I'm thrilled to have you share these insights with us today. It's been over 10 years that USBC has been working with WIP in one way, shape, form, or another. And so it's really just an honor and a privilege to be able to talk to you today about these things, about what opportunities lay for women, whether it be in the access to capital space, whether it be them teaming together, merging together for new opportunities, whether it be in the contracting space, operationally, just pulling things together, and then obviously leveraging technology, specifically AI, to make to make life easier for them to navigate the entire process, for them to be able to work on their business, not in their business as much. And so thank you so much. Do you have any closing words before we take questions?
Yeah, just if our listeners have not had an opportunity to review the report, I'd suggest that you go and do so. In addition to the full overall report, there are demographics that look at women of color, women, geographic locations around the country. And so, as a business owner, it's really important to understand the things that make you successful and don't. The parts of the country where there are more or less resources that are available to you. If you're in policy making, this is a lot of information and data that can help you make informed decisions. And as we work together as coalition partners, it really helps us to know what resources we need to bring to the table to be able to support women business owners.
Well, thank you again. And I'm going to open it up for questions. I think either Tiffany or Donna or Faith, one of you has a couple of questions.
Yes. First of all, I want to say a tremendous thank you to Angela Dingle and Lisa Joseph, as this has been so valuable and helpful information. And we do have just a few questions. The first question, Angela, can you share the author of the book that you mentioned that was called Scale?
Her name is Allison Maslin, and the name of the book is Scale, SCALE. And the premise behind the book is either scale your business or you fail.
Okay. All right. Thank
And
you.
she's a part of this ecosystem. She's a part of the women's business ecosystem, so you might see her around the community. I think currently she has a program that's going on with the Women's Presidents Organization, but Allison Maslin is her name.
Okay. Thank you. And then another question is, what industries are you seeing that are in demand?
So I've lived in Washington D.C. for a long time. I don't consider myself to be a Washingtonian, even though I probably should at this age. And I've said that to say what I tell people all the time is if you're seeing it on the news, you need to be paying attention to it, right? So this administration is very focused on manufacturing, right? Onshoring manufacturing, being able to bring that back to the United States. And while that might sound like something that you don't necessarily want to get into, if you're in marketing, manufacturing companies need marketing as well. If you're in education, their employees need to be trained, right? If you're in, don't simply think that you can only focus on the one industry that you're in. The thing to understand, though, as we make this big push to bring manufacturing back to the United States, we don't currently have the infrastructure, the energy grid, or the infrastructure to support that. So energy is huge, you guys. The Amazons of the world and the Metas of the world and all of these corporations that are building data centers, those data centers need energy, and that energy translates into business opportunities for you all. In particular, if any of you attended NMSDC, National Minority Supplier Development Conference last week, there was a focus on the fact that there are companies that are looking for innovative solutions around energy. So if you've thought about, even as even as a consumer, if you're thinking, this particular thing is getting on my nerves and we need to come up with a solution, there you go, woman, just go create that new thing. And I am smiling and saying that jovially, but I'm serious about creating opportunities, right? You can, if you can believe it, you can create it. The other is artificial intelligence, right? That is truly a game changer. If you all will allow me, I will supply a link to a survey on artificial intelligence and the importance to business owners. If you're not currently using it, you're behind the eight ball. And so you can be using AI to provide goods and services, but also to just completely revolutionize the way that you manage your employees, that you work with your clients, and the way that you focus on what's next for the business. And then finally, because it's near and dear to my heart, two things: sustainability. Companies, in this sense, what you hear on the news isn't always the answer. What you hear on the news here is that we don't want a quote unquote woke society, and we don't want to focus on climate change and things like that. But if you are doing business in the private sector, and those corporations are global corporations, they still have global responsibilities to do that work. So that work is not gone, it's still there. And then finally, cybersecurity. Cyber is it's every single day. Right, even to host a Zoom session like this, you have to be able to secure the environment. So those are the ones that I'm seeing and hearing about.
Yeah, and please, Angela, feel free to share that link with us or in the chat. We're happy to send that out to everyone as well. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Angela, there's another question. This person says, I'm in the process of reimagining my professional services business. Can you suggest trusted resources to research high growth industries?
That's a little bit harder for me to answer because nothing's coming right up off the top of my head. Alisa, can we schedule some time to maybe help whoever this listener is? I'm happy to share.
Absolutely. And I'd
Okay.
love for them to, we have Friday office hours as well. So we'll keep that question, and would love for them to join us there. But as I'm thinking about it, the Census Bureau is one place to go. So although some of the information it's not as, I would say, up to date as we know, that is a good place to go. There's also, as you look at I think they're still out, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics also has information relative to small businesses, and gives sort of an understanding of what the trends and market trends are that are happening. The SBA, I'm not sure if they still produce this report, but you probably can find one at least from last year out of their advisory council, where they talk about trends and talk about the state of small business. So I think sort of starting there, using this report also as a way of being able to see what some of these trends are. But there are ways for you. The library, to me, is a good source. Going to a small business development center is a great source because they have tons of research information to be able to give to you. So we'd love to assist you and help you with what your idea may be and where you can go for information.
Thank you. And I believe Kristen put her information in the chat, so we'll capture that and
That's great.
reach back out to you.
Right, and I did see somebody say, well, like any public library that you have has a business section. I have a library card. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have a library card that allows me to be able to go to the library online. I don't have to physically go into the library. Again, and I talk about this in terms of time savers. Like we have to work smarter, not harder. And sometimes being able to leverage online resources is really the way.
I think Elisa's,
She might have frozen. And while
Really
you're
happy to
waiting,
sort of share that with you afterwards. I also someone asking about small business grants. Just want to address that for 1 minute. So the pandemic was extremely helpful in the myriad of programs. We actually administered a few of those to be able to provide grants to small businesses. And there still is grant capital available for small businesses. Our Buy Black portal has a subscription to a grant list that they come out with every month. But I also want to caution that grants are becoming few and far in between. So, and before the pandemic, you couldn't even get a grant as a for-profit business. So part of what we are really encouraging folks to do is to look at where you are operationally, leverage all the webinars that you can to sort of understand where you can save money, how you can increase your cash flow, how you can plan before you need capital to be able to get capital as opposed to waiting for an emergency to do that, but also going to your local governments. A lot of your economic development centers in your local municipality have resources as well. So we tend to try to keep people abreast. If you're on our distribution list, we usually, as I say, send out the Buy Black grant list at least once a month. But there are a myriad of ways to sort of access them, but they're getting fewer and far between.
and as we think about other ways, if you are using AI, whether it's Chatty or Claude or one of them, they'll help you figure out what are some high growth industries as well.
Mm-hmm.
Ask it about a side hustle. You'll be surprised what he comes back with.
That's right. That's right.
and Angela, we have another question. When is the conference that you mentioned? When is that coming up?
Sure. Unity Week is coming up November 17th through 19th. It's a virtual conference that starts, I think we get started at 8 o'clock on November 17th, which is Monday.
Monday. Mm-hmm.
Put a link to the registration for that in the chat as well. And our corporate sponsors have allowed us to provide that free of charge this year.
That's wonderful.
And,
extremely timely.
Let's see. If you'd like to schedule office hours, that's a question that we have in the chat. You can just send us an email at info@greenwoodwbc.org. And we're going to bring that up on the screen. Yeah, we have it on the screen. But the link, the email, or there's a QR code if you'd like to scan the QR code. But also the email is info@greenwoodwbc.org.
So again, I want to thank Angela for all this wonderful information that she's given us today. I'm really excited about what the future of women-owned businesses looks like and what it's going to be. And really just encourage everyone to not only follow the work that we're doing, but work of our partners like WIP, to be able to find information, gather the resources that you need, get connected with our subject matter experts and others that can help you on your journey. We really, really encourage you to do that and attend the conference that WIP is having next week as well. I'm going to turn it back over to Donna to GBC.
All right, thank you so much. And we do have some announcements from Faith Allaby, who is our program assistant at the Greenwood Women's Business Center. Thank you, Faith.
Thank you, Donna. Hello, everyone. So as you can see here on the screen, whether you're just starting out or looking to grow, our experts are ready to support you. Don't miss the opportunity to get the support you need. Join our virtual hours every Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon Central Time. And next we have, please share your story. How has the GBC helped your business level up? We want to celebrate your business success by sharing your story. Please scan the QR code and let us know. GBC appreciates our partnership with SCORE, a highly regarded nonprofit association dedicated to helping small businesses grow and achieve their goals through education and mentorship. Scan the QR code and sign up for your next SCORE mentor. GBC has partnered with Verizon for their Small Business Digital Ready program. This complimentary program provides access to crucial resources, cutting-edge tools, and expert guidance tailored just for small businesses. Scan the QR code and register today and complete 2 courses to unlock the current $10K grant opportunity that closes on December 10th. Our next Verizon webinar is scheduled for November 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. During this webinar, you'll learn how to leverage your community not just for business opportunities, but for mentorship, collaboration, and resilience. Whether you're just starting out or scaling your company, this session gives you actionable tools to strengthen your network, tap into the power of community, and ultimately grow both personally and professionally. Learn how to grow and nurture a strong network that fuels long-term business growth and provides support during every stage of entrepreneurship. GBC and American Consumer Credit Counseling, ACCC, are proud to partner in support of business entrepreneurs and their families. As a trusted nonprofit, ACCC offers personalized debt relief programs, financial counseling, and education to help you take control of your finances and your future. Scan the QR code today or to sign up for your free consultation. When it comes to access to capital for your small business, Lendistry provides tailored solutions for your businesses. Offering flexible funding options, it supports entrepreneurs in scaling and sustaining their ventures. This program helps businesses achieve their goals and drive economic empowerment in our community. Happy holidays.
All right, thank you, Faith. And Tiffany, if you could please put back up the office hours link on the screen, please. Some of our participants couldn't read the QR code. Yeah, there you go. So if you can take just a moment and scan that QR code. Our office hours are from 11 to 12 noon Central Time. And if you can't scan the QR code, our email address again is info@greenwoodwbc.org. All right, thank you. All right, we just want to thank everyone for attending today. Again, Elisa and Angela, such powerful information, such a great job that you all did sharing that with us. And we want to thank you all for attending the Impact of Women-Owned Businesses webinar. This webinar is made possible through our work at the Greenwood Women's Business Center, which is funded in part by a grant provided by the SBA, the U.S. Small Business Administration. We appreciate you sharing your time with us today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish all of you a great holiday season. Thank you.